Hi, I'm Rob Walker, and I want to welcome you to my 10 15-minute yoga classes for complete beginners. Hopefully, you may have read or listened to my YouTube video explaining the rationale behind this and some of the things that act as barriers for people beginning yoga. So, if you've listened to that and you've watched it and you're ready to go, let's begin with the first class. So each class will be a little bit more progressive than the previous one. We'll gradually make the poses a little bit more challenging and at least will provide you with variety. The first class begins with cross-legged sitting position, and I'm going to rest my hands on the front of my knees and sit up tall. I can sit up tall more easily if I hold on to the front of my knees and pull on the knees and lift the chest. Tuck the chin, so I'm sitting directly, my head directly over my shoulders, over my hips. And I'm not slumping. I'm not in a C shape. I'm in a S shape through the natural curves of the spine. So this is a good place to remember how to sit and to maintain good posture as you get older. So for all of us, posture is an important benefit from our yoga practice. It makes us not only more flexible in order to maintain good posture, but also it makes us more mindful of how we are holding our body. Okay, so the first pose I'd like you to move into from here is cat-cow pose. So I'm sitting on a bolster, so I'm going to move it out of the way. I use props in a number of my poses to make them more accessible to people, and perhaps to bring a new insight. So come onto your hands and knees and have your hands underneath your shoulders and your knees underneath your hips, and have the hands shoulder width apart and vertical arms, and the knees and the feet the same distance apart. And from here, I want you to learn what tucking and tilting is. So the tucking is when the tailbone moves under and the head moves towards the navel. So my back moves into a gentle rounding curve called cat pose, after the imagined shape of the angry cat. And then inhale to the other pose, which is the cow pose. And then we move back and forwards. So with each movement, we start to draw fresh nutrients into the spine and expel toxins and waste products. So this is very good for the spine. It's a great way to begin any yoga class. Back and forth. Now from here, I want to introduce you to another principle, which is keeping the back stable while we move the arms and legs. This is a major way to prevent back injury and to keep a healthy back. So let's extend the left arm and the right leg. So this is called bird dog pose. And we learn also to coordinate with our breath. And then switch sides, the right arm and the left leg. Focus more on lengthening from the fingertips to the big toe mound rather than lifting the leg. And then switch sides to the first side for the second time, keeping the hips and the shoulders level. Feel the pose is very active, really extending out so the joints are stretched. And then last time, extending out through the right hand and the left foot and breathing through the nose. Cat-cow pose. And then come on down. The next pose, very much focused on core strength. It's plank and a side plank. So you may have to keep your knees on the floor, but if you do, keep your body in a straight line. So I'm going to do the full pose. So I'm going to walk my feet back, keep my body in a straight line. And I just hold it. Time here builds strength in your core. The hands are still widely spread, the body's in a straight line, and I come into side plank, letting the heels drop, one foot in front of the other. My left foot's in front, my right foot's behind, and I'm in side plank. Now keep your back in that straight line as you go across to the other side. And then back to the center, And from here, we're going to move up into downward dog. So from here, I'm in plank and I can simply push my hips up towards the sky and move my chest towards my thighs. So I would suggest beginners keep their knees bent and the heels up and press your chest towards your thighs. If you're very flexible, you can start straightening your legs and push your heels down, but don't do that if your shoulders are very tight. Okay, let's come out of downward dog, a pose which really strengthens the upper body, strengthens the hamstrings, and starts to make you more flexible. Let's come up to standing pose. So standing is something you may have taken for granted if you haven't practiced yoga, but in yoga, we make a big deal of it. So I want you to stand with your feet parallel. Now, it's the outer edges of your feet parallel. So look down and you'll find you're actually slightly pigeon-toed for most people because the outer edges, to come parallel, you have to turn the feet in slightly. From there, draw your kneecaps up so your legs are very active. I'm pressing the thighs back. And from there, I'm lifting the chest, broadening across the chest, narrowing the back, tucking the chin, drawing the shoulder blades down the back. And I like to turn my biceps forwards and my palms forwards. And if somebody was looking at you from the side, hopefully they would see a straight line and neither the hips thrust forward nor the head. And so from here, we're going to move into a pose that really strengthens the lower body and is healthy for the hips, the knees, and the ankles. So inhale the arms over the head and then bend the knees. Now look down at your knees and make sure they're facing the center of your toes and they're neither bow-legged nor knock-kneed. Take the arms up with energy. Beautiful. So we're just going through these poses. Each one gives you some special gift. The gift of this one is strength in the lower body and health of the knees, the ankles, and the hips. Exhale the hands down. Then we come to the most famous of balancing poses, which is tree pose. Now for tree pose, complete beginners might want to consider standing where they could put a fingertip on the wall. So I think the image on this video will be back to front, but I'm turning my left foot out and putting my left foot up on my right thigh. Now, if you can't reach the right thigh, you could keep your toe on the ground. You could bring it just above the ground onto the opposite ankle. Or, like me, you could bring it up onto the opposite thigh. Now, we're all going to be a bit wobbly here, so there are some things you can use to keep yourself safe. One is my finger on the wall. Only a finger. We don't want to become overly dependent. And then let's bring the hands into a prayer if you feel balanced. We're building tremendous strength in the standing leg, particularly if it's very straight. It helps to build bone density and strength in the muscles and the joints. Lift the chest, draw the shoulder blades down, tuck the chin. Keep your eyes on a fixed object and notice your breath. Breath is the key to yoga. It's the key to our whole lives. And then bring that foot down, and we're going to do the other side. So you could put another finger on another wall or turn around and face the other way. I'm going to turn my right foot out and I could keep the toes on the floor, bring my foot onto the opposite calf, or bring my leg all the way up onto the opposite thigh. I reach out and just gain some balance from the wall here. I'm just kind of exaggerating how challenging this can be because I want you to see how important it is to have something beside you to make you feel safe. My hands are in a prayer. I'm focusing on my breath. I'm keeping the standing leg straight. I'm wobbling a bit, but then that's fine. It's all about the body finding its safe central place and just developing balance. And then bring that foot down, bring the feet back together again. And we're nicely through probably about half the class now. It's only 15 minutes. So let's work on Warrior Two pose now. So we're going to move into a few each week. We'll move into, or each class will move into a slightly different set of standing poses. Today, I want you to stand with your feet wide apart here like this. Now I'm going to turn my right leg out to 90 degrees, follow the knee follows the foot, so the whole leg turns out. I bring my arms up, keep them very active, and bend the right knee. I'm taking my stance a little bit longer, keeping my spine vertical, looking over my front hand. Keep the back leg really strong. Now, we'll move into the second pose, which is extended side angle. So I'm going to bring the forearm onto the thigh, swing the bottom arm under, and you see how my upper body forms a straight line from my left fingertips out through my left heel, opening the chest, looking up at my elbow. So I'm using this as a chest opener, extended side angle. Come back to warrior two. Just find that pose, straighten the front leg, pivot your feet to the front. Let's do the other side. Turn the left foot out, the back foot in, take the arms up, bend the front knee to a right angle. And we'll keep the torso vertical. Beautiful. Look out over your front hand. It's called a drishti point. It's where your gaze is. We have gazes in yoga, so it helps to keep us focused. I'm keeping the back leg very strong, the torso facing the long edge of the mat, and the torso vertical, not leaning towards my left knee. And then I can transition into extended side angle, bring the left hand down onto the left thigh, swing the arm under, and look up at my top elbow. And I want to feel a very strong stretch from the right fingertips right out through the right outer heel. So it's a side stretch right through the side of the body. Inhale back to warrior two. Straighten the front leg. Let's take the feet so they're parallel. Here's where we take a short rest. So I'm going to go hands on the hips and just come forwards and rest my fingertips on the floor. Try to pivot from your hip crease and not from the middle of your back. We want to keep the back in more or less a stable straight line, broadly speaking, in all our poses. And then put your hands on your hips, your knees bend slightly, come up with a flat back. And we're going to go into a very gentle back bend here, Sphinx pose. So bring your feet together, face the short edge of the mat, and come down on your hands and knees. So my forearms are parallel. And I'm going to pull the hands towards me. This is called an isometric action. It means that the hands don't actually move. They just create the energy in that direction. And the result is somewhere else. The result is my chest puffs a little, my shoulders move away from my ears. So this is called the Sphinx pose, and it's the gentlest of all back bends, and it enables you to explore where the back bends are tall for you. They represent one of the different movements of the body, so we were born to be able to move backwards as well as forwards. We spend most of our culture in forward folds, so back bend helps to act as a counterpose to that. Okay, so let's come up onto our hands and knees, and here is where we're going to introduce a little bit of equipment. So I'm going to bring a thin yoga block. You could use anything to sit on. When I sit on something like this, a block, or in this case, a blanket, it helps me to tilt my pelvis forwards in a seated forward fold. So I'm coming to sit on the blanket. I sit right on the front edge of the blanket. And you often see people going into forward folds and they're really humping their back like this. It doesn't do their vertebrae any good at all. We want to pivot from the hip crease. So when I sit on the edge of the blanket, it tilts my pelvis forwards. I'm going to wrap the strap around my feet so that I'm not trying to, well, I can reach my feet easily, but I can do the pose with more alignment if I use the strap. So I put the strap just below my toes, push the inner heels and big toe mounds away from me, and I sit up tall. This might be all you do. Now, if I want to explore going forwards, I'm taking the elbows out to the sides, and I'm not going any further forwards than this, because if I do, it's simply going to be rounding my back. calling it cheating is probably an overstatement, but you get the drift. We don't want to undermine the benefit of the pose by trying too hard. So here I am in Paschimottanasana. It's called the Great West Stretch. And then I'm coming up, and I'm going to do one more seated pose, which is a twist. So I'm simply going to bend the right leg, bring the heel in close to the groin, hold on to the knee, and then take the right hand down behind me and turn like this. So this is a pose dedicated to the sage Marichi in Indian mythology. And then look over my right shoulder. My spine is vertical, my chest is lifted, and all the time, chest up, shoulders down, and head back over the base of the shoulders. Come back to the front, other side, hold on to the top of the knee, take the left hand down behind you, avoid leaning back, and then hold on to the front of the right knee, turn and look over your left shoulder. And breathe. Always breathe through the nose. Keep the right leg active, and try to become aware of where your body is in space. Then we come back to center, and from this seated twist, I'm going to lie down in Shavasana. So I'm going to take this blanket and put it under my head and neck, not my shoulders. Roll down. Just a couple of minutes here. Take a turn in the blanket under my neck. Don't have the blanket too thick. Turn my palms up, straighten one leg at a time, and turn the feet out. Don't undervalue this pose, Shavasana. In the rest of the class, we're focusing on our alignment physically. Here we are working on the mind. One of the great gifts of yoga was its claim to end suffering. And the end of suffering comes from understanding how the mind works and learning how the tricks of the mind keep you anxious and never satisfied. When you lay here, pay attention to the moment and to your breath. There's nothing you need, so there's nothing to think about. Just focus on your breath and be happy with this moment. This moment is all you have. So if you're watching this on a recorded video, feel free to pause the video and stay here for a little longer. Feel free to go back and look at some of the other poses that we were working on. And we're now coming out of Shavasana, so I'm going to bend my knees gently, roll onto my side, use my top hand to push me up, come up to a cross-legged sitting position. And I want to thank you for joining me in this short yoga practice. I hope you will check out the following 9 videos and also my website, www.newyoga.ca.